Hello, everyone. Oh, I can still hear an echo. I don't know. Is that just me that I can hear an echo? Are people listening hearing an echo? Are they hearing my voice echoing? Is it annoying? Let me know in the comments. This is Where Are All the Women? I'm Megan Murphy, and we have a special guest with us today as Mary Lou is away in Ireland. So Jennifer Lahl is here to chat with us about all sorts of creepy things.
I'm representing the nurses since Mary Lou can't be here.
Oh, yes. Perfect. If you are watching on YouTube, please do me a favor and like and subscribe. And if you have a question or a comment that you would like me to see and you would like, Jennifer to address, for example, please use the super chat. I do try to keep track of the live chat as best I can, but I really can't keep track of everything that closely because then I would be ignoring the person I'm talking to. Okay, why don't you... Oh, damn. Yeah, I can really hear that echo. Are you able to turn my voice volume down on your end but still hear me? Or if you have any headphones, that would be good. But if it's too much of a pain to grab them, then don't worry too much. Sorry, we should have figured this out beforehand.
We'll keep talking while I fiddle with these.
Alrighty. Okay, so Jennifer Lahl is the author of a paper that she's going to have to explain to me because I'm not a science person, and so these kinds of things go over my head. But it's called Fertility Preservation. Is there a model for gender-dysphoric youth? And Jennifer is a real expert and, one of the very few people I think that is offering a very important perspective that we don't hear very often in terms of critiques of reproductive technologies in particular. And today we're going to talk about reproductive technologies in relation to transhumanism and the idea that, for example, men can give birth, men can get pregnant, and the impact on transgenderism generally on reproductive technologies. So Jennifer is the founder of the Center for Bioethics and Culture Network. I've linked to that in the show notes, again, if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're not, it's cbc-network.org. So can you...
Is it better with my headphones in?
I can still hear me echoing, but I suspect that if you go into your sound settings and you change the sound settings so that I'm getting fed through your headphones instead of your laptop, then that will resolve it.
I'm not on a laptop.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Let's not worry about it too much. Maybe it's only bothering me and nobody else.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no. Some people are saying they hear an echo, and some people are saying they hear no echo. The truth is...
All right, well,
don't worry about it. Okay, people don't seem too bothered. It's just my little idiosyncrasies, maybe. Okay, so tell us about this paper, Fertility Preservation. Is there a model for gender-dysphoric youth?
Yeah. So for those who don't know me or those who do know me, I have spent a lot of my professional time working in the space of reproductive technology. And so I know all the facts and evidence around it and how much it fails and how much people are promised all these kinds of things, that it's going to save the day. And when I found out as a pediatric critical care nurse that when children are put on puberty blockers and or cross-sex hormones and or offered gender surgeries, in quotes, they're offered fertility preservation so that they can then later on access fertility medicine so that they can have a baby because they know they're destroying their fertility and their chances of conception. So I reached out to a couple of my colleagues because I live in the real world and you can tell stories and you can tell people all day long what's the truth. But a lot of times you need research papers. You need the data. We need evidence-based medicine. And that's very helpful, especially when you're litigating cases, to say that you've offered a technique, that's disingenuous. You're giving false hope to these young children, and oftentimes to their parents, because the parents, in the case of minors, are going to, be doing the informed consent. So we set upon it. I wrote the paper with Dr. Michael Laidlaw, who's an endocrinologist, who's been given lots of expert testimony in detransition lawsuits. I wrote the paper with Dr. Angie Thompson, who's an OBGYN, and then with my background and expertise in fertility medicine, we set out to look at fertility preservation, which has been around for a long time. It started with animals. It was a great way to save endangered species, species about ready to go extinct. We could preserve egg and sperm of, some spotted owl and allow this species to not go extinct. Then what happened, fertility preservation moved into cancer patients, because we knew that before people get chemotherapy and or radiation, their fertility can be negatively impacted. So adult cancer patients would be offered fertility preservation. And then it moved to pediatric cancer patients, because kids get cancer too, and kids have to do chemo and radiation. And what we did was we tracked the data in, adult cancer patients and pediatric cancer patients. And for many, many years in the adult category, this was all experimental. We were just trying it in hopes that it would help and it would really preserve fertility. And then it moved into pediatrics, where it's still seen as experimental. But it has a huge failure rate. And especially in the case of pediatrics, if a child hasn't gone through puberty yet, you have to freeze their ovarian tissue or their testicular tissue, because there's no gametes. They haven't gone through puberty. They don't have egg yet. They don't have mature sperm. And that just fails, to freeze tissue and then hope to transplant that in, I don't know, when the kid's 25 or 30, when they might want children, so you're freezing it for decades perhaps. And then if the child has gone through puberty and they can freeze and or bank their sperm or egg, that too has a very low success rate. So we disproved that, because even the Cass report, which was a very good report, I'm not bashing on Dr. Cass, but even in her report, she suggested that all children should be offered fertility preservation. It should be a standard thing that they're offered. And we went, no, why would you offer something that doesn't work?
No, it's a false hope, right?
And when you look at the women in Silicon Valley that are, banking their eggs so that they can preserve their fertility, so they can keep working and have their children later, it's thousands of dollars every year just to keep your eggs on ice. So the same is true if you're a 9-year-old child and you're going to do this and you're going to pay the storage fee. I mean, it's expensive, it's risky, it overwhelmingly doesn't work. And unlike a cancer patient, when you could argue, they need a therapy, they need a treatment because they have cancer. So you could make a case to offer them, as long as they know it's experimental, as long as they know it's not necessarily going to work, as long as they know it's expensive. But in the case of gender-dysphoric kids, you are knowingly ruining healthy fertility.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the main, when we're talking about the dangers of transing kids, one of the main issues is that it essentially sterilizes these minors, and then of course it medicalizes them for life, and it has all sorts of these hormones, the puberty blockers, the hormones, so on and so forth, all have a negative impact on things like bone density, development. Obviously, you're not going through these processes that you need to go to in order to become a healthy adult in a wide variety of ways, including a lot of ways that we probably don't even know yet, because we don't have super long-term studies on all this. So I suppose when they're bringing this up to counter to counter those arguments and points. Sorry to pause. People in the comments are saying it sounds like Jennifer's mic input is fluctuating. It's constantly getting quieter than normal every few seconds, which I was hearing as well. I'm not sure why. Are you on a phone or?
No. I'm on my computer.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on my computer. I've got my headset in my Yeti mic.
I wonder, let's go into the sound settings and then check the input and the output. Sorry to do this mid
No.
stream.
So
Somebody said Jennifer's audio varies but is audible.
maybe I just should
Adjusting the gain should fix.
Is that any better?
Um,
Is that any better?
let's try. Can you go into your sound settings on your computer and then check what it says for input?
My mic is set on my Yeti.
Okay, so input is set on your Yeti.
And my output is set on my speakers on my computer.
Okay. Change the output to your headphones if you're able to. Is that an option?
No.
Oh, okay. Are the headphones connected to the computer?
Yes, through my Yeti mic, which is connected to my computer.
Oh, okay. Is it possible to plug the headphones into the computer?
Yeah, I gotta find that.
Sorry. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of this.
Hold on.
Yeah, again, anyway, there's all sorts of ethical, I think, and obviously, other problems that come from all sorts of reproductive technologies. And I find that in general, like even within the heterodox community, people seem to treat reproductive technologies as almost a universally good thing. So, I, and I'm sure Jennifer does as well, get tons and tons of pushback when you criticize things like surrogacy and IVF, because,
Is that better?
Is that better? Let's see.
People.
I don't know. I'm not really hearing any difference, but maybe.
Audience.
Let's keep talking so that we can see. Okay, so what they're offering. Okay, let's check the sound settings again and see if you can put output as the headphones. Do the headphones show up in the sound settings for output now? That would at least deal with the echo issue.
I still don't see that headphones.
Oh, are they plugged into the computer now?
Yeah, they're plugged into the computer.
But they're not showing up in the sound settings for output?
No. It just says microphone, default microphone. Is that better? Is that better?
It sounds like it's really loud. It seems like you switch your mic to a different mic. So switch it back to the Yeti.
Okay.
And then, so that should be your input. And then your output, you should have an option for the headphones, but maybe not. Anyway, maybe there's nothing we can do about it, and we should stop.
I'm so sorry.
Fussing over
just
it.
try to use the microphone that's in my portable camera. It's not as good a sound.
That's okay. It's just I was trying to deal with the my echo part on my end, which would have been if you switch the output to the headphones instead of it going through your computer and then feeding back through your mic. That was the issue that I was sort of trying to deal with. But if your headphones aren't showing up on the output in the sound settings, then we might not be able to fix it.
It's all Yeti microphone.
Oh, weird. Okay. Whatever then. If I stop talking, then it won't be an issue.
Well, but they said that I was going in and out, so my volume was crazy.
I think yours is sounding a bit better now, actually. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe that's just wishful thinking. Okay, so what is it? So what is it that they're offering these kids as a solution? Are they at least so they're admitting that these processes and these treatments do result in sterilization for minors? Is that the case?
Well, I think they're admitting it in a non-explicit way. I mean, why else would you offer fertility preservation? Because if you're not knowingly damaging fertility, you wouldn't offer to preserve it, right? So it's not like they say, we're going to destroy your fertility, so we're going to offer you this. They probably couch it, because it's not, I mean, that was part of the beef of CAS's report is that it should be offered and it should be standardized how it's offered. So, we'd inform the standardization of informed consent. We are offering you this because there's a likelihood that your fertility will be damaged. There's a likelihood that your fertility will be harmed. There's a likelihood that your fertility could be lost. Therefore, would you like to have this solution of preserving your fertility? So later, you can have your own, perhaps biologically related child. But in the United States, it's not even standardized if it's being offered, who's offering it, how are they offering it, what's the informed consent look like. And of course, our paper isn't arguing to do that, to standardize the offering. Our paper is arguing we have no business knowingly putting children on drugs and therapies and treatments and surgeries that we know are going to damage their fertility without having some kind of real illness, real medical illness like cancer.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it is that you're medicalizing otherwise healthy kids. So you're turning these kids into these medical patients with all these problems for absolutely no reason at all.
Yeah, and you're making them, I'd say you're doubling down on a patient for life if it's a patient that's going to want to have children, because then they're going to have to interface. You don't just go to the sperm bank and the egg bank where your gametes are frozen and miraculously get a baby. You've got to then go to the fertility doctor. If you've had your uterus removed and you are partnered with a man, you need a surrogate womb. If you're, you have to think about how this person is going to grow up and be partnered with, and what of their body and their natural reproductive organs have been destroyed. Men who've had their penises removed and their testicles removed, they're going to need all kinds of help from people to have a child.
Sorry to interrupt again. There's just that I think that if you unplug your mic and maybe we can just use the mic on your computer, that might be better, because it's just coming in and out and it's hard to hear you. That's okay.
I don't know. Okay, I'm flying. I'm going commando now.
Okay, well, it sounds the same. I think maybe it was not, maybe it wasn't connected to the Yeti mic before.
Okay, I just switched to the mic. Sorry, I hadn't switched to the microphone in my camera. How's that?
My echo is worse now.
Meghan.
Yeah, it needs to, the output needs to go through your headphones.
Yeah. Should I just try to log in on my phone?
I don't know if that'll make any difference, because the issue would be around that my needs to come through your headphones. So that's the problem that we resolve now.
The StreamYard settings are pretty bare, so I don't see how I can control your volume, your output.
Oh, okay. You should be in the sound settings on your computer, not in StreamYard.
Oh, I'm on the StreamYard sound settings.
Yeah. Okay. So this hopefully will help.
I thought I was like working in Zoom.
Yeah, let's go into the sound settings in your computer.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, complainers in the comments section. I'm aware. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay, so do you see output in the sound settings on your computer?
Yes, I do.
Do you see the headphones? Are the headphones plugged into your computer?
I just unplugged them.
Okay. We're getting close. It's going to happen.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so the headphones are plugged into the computer. Do you see the headphones in the output?
Yes.
Yay!
How's that?
Test. No.
Test.
The output needs to go through the headphones and the sound settings.
I'm going to try not to swear.
That's okay. I swear all the time.
Output. How's that?
Test.
Test.
No, it's not coming through your headphones. It's coming through the computer.
It's
Sorry,
It doesn't say
guys.
headphones, it says USB audio device. So that's my plug-in of my.
Oh, okay. So the headphones aren't showing up on the output still.
No, they're there, but it's called USB audio device, is what popped up.
Do you hear my voice in your headphones, or do you hear it coming through the computer?
I hear it through the computer.
Yeah. So it needs to be coming through the headphones.
Yeah.
But your mic sounds better. It's not fading in and out now that it's going through the computer, but my echo
is worse.
is loud because it's not coming through the headphones.
I don't know what to do for that.
Okay. Well, if you can't make the output come through your headphones, then try just turning my volume down on your computer so it's not feeding back through the mic quite so loudly.
Okay. How's that?
Test.
Is that better?
No.
It's down on 3. It's on volume is set on 3.
Okay. Well, let's just leave it, and I'll just try not to talk too much. Okay, so explain what they're offering the kids and the parents as a solution. They're freezing tissue for what purpose in the future?
So in the case of the testicular or ovarian tissue, that's tissue that has to be grafted back inside their body in hopes that it will take, just like an organ transplant, or skin graft, that it will then start generating cells that will produce egg or sperm. Now, if it's the case they already have sperm and they already have eggs, then they freeze those, and then when they're ready to have a child decades later, they thaw them out, and then they have to fertilize, an egg with a sperm to get an embryo, because that's how you get a baby, and then it has to be implanted someplace to gestate a baby.
So where does it get implanted?
Well, again, like I said, say this is a boy who thinks he's going to become a girl, but he's saving his sperm so that when he's a girl grown up and he wants a baby, he's going to need somebody that has an egg and a womb to take his sperm so he can make a baby that's biologically related to him. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
The same with a young girl. She's going to freeze her eggs, then she's going to go on and do all this harmful stuff to think she can pretend to be a boy or become a boy. And then if she's had her uterus removed or, and then she goes and gets her eggs and makes an embryo, if she hasn't had her uterus removed, she could then carry that baby. That's why you see trans, bearded women with their big pregnant belly because they haven't taken their uterus out. Or if she's taken her uterus out, she's going to need to be partnered with a woman that has a uterus, but then they're going to need a sperm from someplace because neither one of these female bodies has a sperm. Or if she's partnered with a man, she's going to need a surrogate and his sperm. And we just throw it out like, oh, we'll just offer him fertility preservation. It's like, has nobody thought about what that really means and what that looks like?
Well, yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, there's all these people who are critical of transgenderism and transhumanism who are not critical at all of reproductive technologies, and I think are not thinking about the impacts in that terms, because it makes me wonder if transgenderism and transhumanism is in part about developing these reproductive technologies, and developing like a uterus that could be implanted in a male body so that he could give birth, and essentially taking the mother out of the whole birth process.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're ready to move into that, but that's a paper I wrote for Colin Wright's Substack the other day, where there's this person, they, them. I could not find their biology in all my Google searches and asking Grok and everybody just says it's they, them. So I don't know. The person's name is Carlo Sariego. Carlo's a PhD student at Yale. Just the kind of nonsense that's being cranked out in our Ivy League, ivory tower education. where this person is, wants us to reimagine pregnancy and reimagine it in such a way that men can be pregnant, and it was, just reading that paper, I had to probably read it 4 times before I even could begin to sort of engage and thoughtfully kind of critique it in something written. But this person totally wants to disrace women by saying, men can experience pregnancy. And there was so much absurdity in the paper. And one point they make is that pregnancy is like transition because your body's changing. And it's like, well, but there's something about your body naturally, normally changing. You're a toddler, then you're a teenager, then you're a young adult, then you're an old person. That's not transition. That's just a natural human development process, the same as pregnancy. Your body changes during pregnancy, but there's nothing unnatural that's being done to your body to, make your belly get bigger or your breasts produce milk. But this person argued that, by taking hormones and having surgeries and dressing a particular way and changing your name and all that stuff, that's a transition. It's a new way of becoming something. So that is akin to pregnancy. They make the case of performance. And that performance, like pregnancy is a performance. We're performing something, and these people are performing that they're pregnant, that they're going to give birth. And then, just the absurdity. One of the illustrations was this gentleman who was presenting as a woman went off of his testosterone. Went off of his estrogen so that he could produce sperm and get somebody pregnant. And so through that, he was becoming pregnant. And he said that his sperm were basically people. He was giving birth to his sperm. But again, it's just appropriating anything that's attached to being female, attached to being a woman, that men want to disclaim it.
I'm scared to talk because of this echo. We need to check the output because it's too distracting. Sorry, I'm sorry to keep harping on this. It's just the echo is really loud and I can't do anything about it on my end. So we have to figure out how to turn my output down on your end and or make my output go through the headphones somehow.
I don't know.
Are you sure the headphones are plugged into the computer? Because it should show up in the output options.
Well, when I plugged it in, that's when the USB audio device showed up.
Okay, so now it says output and it's on USB audio.
Yeah.
But it's not coming through the headphones.
Yeah.
That's weird.
But when I unplug my headphones, that device goes away.
Oh, it's very mysterious. Are you able to turn my voice down more? The volume, the output volume?
Sorry. Scrolling. It's down to 9 on the, on the input. On the output, I have it at 3. That's...
Are you able to turn it down anymore?
Well, I guess it can go 0.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. It's not turning, it's not getting lower, so that's strange. If it were on 0, you wouldn't be able to hear me.
I know, and it says output volume.
What about just on your computer turning the volume down?
Yeah, you can see that I'm technologically challenged.
Sorry. I wish I could see what was happening on your end.
I'm just going to see if we can just do it through my what does that sound like?
Test. You sound fine now. It's just my echo that's coming through still.
Yeah.
Because, it's a matter of changing
the audience say? What does the audience say?
Yeah, they say that I'm loud and echoey.
I don't know how I can control your, other than...
Just turn the volume down on your computer.
Yeah.
Like if there's a volume button on your keypad, just turn the volume down.
Yeah.
That should help a bit.
Okay.
Theoretically. That helped. The echo is much quieter.
Okay.
Still there, but it's quieter. Okay. Sorry about all that. Okay, so Okay, so we're talking about this man or woman who is identified as trans, and
Well, I mean, the big idea is, we don't have to reimagine things that are just biologically factual. It'd be like if I was a quadriplegic and I just reimagined myself to be a walking human being. Well, that's just not factual. That's something that they would probably send me to, a psychiatrist to talk about. Um, um, and that we have to reimagine that men can be pregnant. Why do we have to reimagine that? Why is that seen as an enlightened thought? Why is that seen as something that's progressive? Why is it seen as something that's necessary? Who benefits from us reimagining men can be pregnant? I mean, to what end is this? I mean, this is somebody who's working on the dissertation at Yale. Okay, so how is this going to solve or fix the problems of the world? How is this going to, I thought that if you're going to be working on a PhD, you're supposed to be contributing new thought that's helpful, not new batshit crazy ideas.
yeah, I mean, it seems all very connected to this sort of postmodernist idea that was obviously connected to gender identity ideology in general, where everything is a social construct and there's no such thing as biology and there's no such thing as male and female. And this is all a political question. And pregnancy is something that can be sort of erased from women's lives and biology, and that doesn't have to be central to their existence. Like you'll often hear trans activists say things like, oh, well, you're reducing women to their reproductive capacity. First of all, as though that's somehow insulting. This is a huge part of our bodies and lives as women, the fact that we can reproduce. It's not an insult.
Well, Carlo, complained that so far all of the research and studies that have been done in men having babies has overwhelmingly focused on trans men meaning women, or non-binary people, which probably means women. And so the scholarly work to date has been done on those people to the, discredit or elimination of trans women, men who are mad that we're not studying that they can have babies too, because they can go off their estrogen and produce sperm, and their sperm are babies. Or they can perform that they are, pregnant. I don't know. I don't know whether to be angry or disgusted.
I mean, who's behind all this? Who's behind all these experimental new technologies? What kind of companies are these? Are they companies? Who's doing this research?
Well, I don't know that, this is where we maybe need like a Jennifer Lahl voice in this, but, to me, who's behind fertility medicine? I mean, it's a lot. I live in the Silicon Valley, the San Francisco Bay Area, and a lot of the new technologies that are coming, so in reproductive technologies, is largely coming from venture capital funding, and it's largely coming from wealthy gay men who want to be able to have babies through technology and not need women. We've done the research where they take a male mice and they take the cells of the mice and they turn them back to egg and sperm. So like this one male mice could then go on and have babies because they could make egg and sperm from, say, a man. The man could go, I have sperm, I need an egg, so give me, here's my skin cell, progenerate stem cells, back to the beginning and make them, make eggs, because we can turn back and we can program cells to make brain or blood or bone or, tissue. And so a lot of that research is coming out of the San Francisco Bay Area. There's quite a few new VC startups out here, well-funded, lots of money, but we know that gay men are very wealthy typically. And I'm not bashing on gay men, but that's the fact of who's driving it. Now, as far as the trans stuff, that's a whole different, Pritzker, those kind of people that have a trans a real trans agenda, maybe a more transhumanist agenda. And are they, I don't know, do they have, their little signal chat groups that they're in where they talking back and forth about how we don't need women anymore. We're all going to work together because men will be able to have babies and we won't need women anymore. So I don't know. I just know that these are deviant people, evil people, greedy people, bad people. Maybe a few of them are really altruistic and think this is going to help mankind.
Well, in general, a lot of these like big tech guys do think that they're altruistic, and meanwhile they're experimenting in really dangerous and creepy ways, and they seem to only be able to, even things like, I'm not trying to change the subject, but it's like robots and like Elon Musk trying to get people to Mars, and I'm like, this isn't cool. Like, I don't want these robots who are able to, act like humans. I don't want humans to go to Mars. It's like, I don't know that all innovation is good innovation, like they seem to put the ethics aside in favor of like, isn't this cool new technology that we can do things? And look, we can grow a baby in some kind of external uterus, and maybe one day we won't even need women at all. And these are also often the same kind of guys who blame feminism for taking women out of their natural roles, because feminists theorized about this kind of thing back in the 70s. There was like feminist sci-fi books that sort of envisioned these kinds of things, and people like Shulamith Firestone, who I think, a lot of these women maybe saw pregnancy as inherently oppressive and getting in the way of women's equality and freedom, and maybe if they need to do it, or they could farm this out until to someone else, then women would have true equality and freedom. But they weren't the actual ones to go so far as to fund all of this research and fund these new technologies, and then fight any of us who say, surrogacy isn't really great for women or babies. This is kind of a gross, exploitative, dangerous practice.
Yeah.
And similar, like, you're not really barely allowed to criticize IVF. I mean, nobody criticizes IVF almost, except for, you and Mary Lou, and I've been critical of IVF too. But it's like, maybe if you're too old to have a baby, you're too old to have a baby, and that's that. And you're not gonna have your perfect ending. But I don't know that it's good to presume that you can wait around until you're 45 because you froze your eggs.
Yeah.
And that's some kind of reasonable or healthy or good solution.
Yeah, and the data's out there. If you're in your 40s and you get pregnant, even if you get pregnant naturally, even if you get pregnant through, a donor egg, whatever, your frozen eggs, you're at high risk for miscarriage because your uterus is old. And you and I, we lift weights, we go to the gym. There's not one exercise you can do that can tone your uterine muscles.
Right.
And so, the uterus is a muscle, and it ages. And so I did the Dr. Oz show once, back when Dr. Oz had his TV show, and it was when is it too old to have a baby? And he had all these 40-plus-year-old women in the audience, New York wealthy women that used egg donors and surrogates and whatever, had their own babies. And he even had this huge infographic on his studio wall that he showed during the show, and it was a uterus in its 40s. I don't remember the specific age, with the embryo attached, and how as that embryo grew, it just started pulling away from this uterus because the uterus couldn't sustain the weight and the growth, and it just hemorrhaged. That's a fact. So yes, you can freeze your eggs, but that doesn't mean when you're 45 or 46 you can successfully deliver a healthy baby, because you have a high chance of miscarriage just because you got a floppy old uterus. And, but men for some reason want to have all these perks, But back to your case about progress, we don't learn from our mistakes. We forge ahead, and then we have, some big catastrophe, some big, the trans stuff is going to come falling down because we're just going to soothe them into oblivion. And so they'll stop doing it just because they'll say, well, I don't want to take that risk anymore, losing everything that I've worked my whole life for. But we just have this sort of notion that if it's new and if it's technology, it's good and it's progress. Like all progress has to be good because progress is forward. But we find out the unintended consequences. Look at as women, DEH, thalidomide, drugs that women were put on that were going to be good, that were going to help them. And I think we're now at fourth or fifth generations daughters of DES and ovarian cancers and links to that. But we have this new drug and we put everybody on it and we say this is great. Same with smoking. Oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And now we know, because we have facts, we have studies, we have evidence. So will men ever be able to have a uterine transplant? I mean, I wrote about that in my book, The Detransition Diaries. In the early 1900s, a Dutch man who thought he was a woman had a uterine transplant, and he died of complications of a uterine transplant. Uterine transplants in women are still very experimental, and we've had less than a dozen live births from women that have had uterine transplants. But we're on one hand we try to get away from doing cesarean sections, and a woman has a uterine transplant, she has to have a cesarean section to have the uterus put in, the transplant done. Then when the baby's due, she can't deliver vaginally because she has a uterine transplant. It's too risky, so she has a C-section to deliver that baby. Mm-hmm. And then after she recovers and heals, she has to have the transplanted uterus removed, or else she has to stay on anti-rejection medications her whole life. So it's recommended that basically this woman, if she has a uterine transplant, she basically quickly has like 2 children and then the uterus is removed once and for all. But basically she's going through 3 C-sections in order to have 1 child. But on the other hand, we've learned so much about how bad C-sections are, how we avoid C-sections. It's not really good for mommy and baby to have that kind of a birth and delivery. But we can have uterine transplants now. And I critiqued a paper, I think it was last year, and it was a woman, again, an academic, arguing that we should use brain dead women and have them gestate babies until we pull them off life support. And as this was a solution, because it's their way of being a organ donor. They just are being a living donor, so their organs being donated while they're still being kept alive. But there was never one mention of the child. And I know as a pediatric nurse and as a mom that, can you imagine a baby gestating in an ICU room, in a mom that's comatose, on a ventilator, never, the lights are on all the time, people are talking all the time, there's none of this reading and rubbing your belly and talking to the baby and playing music, and the normal rhythms, your mom is asleep at night and that's when the baby wakes up because everything's still, you eat something and the baby gets hiccups because they got indigestion from whatever you ate. There's never any of those natural things that should be happening in normal fetal development. But somebody just thought, oh, well, here's a great way we can use these women. They can do the one final thing they can do to help society, as they're laying there comatose. And I thought, how dehumanizing to a dead woman to be kept alive. Like the vultures are just coming down and picking off you. We can just use everything from you until we finally say, you're ready for the grave now.
It's all really dehumanizing.
And why do women stand for this? Why do women offer their wombs as surrogates to strangers, to international people, to, why do women sell their eggs? Why do it's overwhelmingly because they need cash, and it's a transactional thing, but we gloss it all over as, benevolent and altruistic and, helping people. And it is, in one case you could say, I helped my sister, this one guy who, went off his testosterone so he could produce eggs. There was on TikTok, he was, bearded, went off of his testosterone so he could ovulate, and he gave his eggs to his sister, who then went on and had a baby using his eggs. It's crazy. I mean, I wouldn't want those eggs in my body.
Yeah, it's gross.
I've been swimming in testosterone for years.
Yeah. So we have a question from Richard. Who asks, do your guests have any insights into the failure rate of frozen gametes?
About freezing, but a little about. Oh, yeah. He's from Canada, I'm assuming, because he gave you Canadian dollars. But in the United States, we track very little data, but what we do comes from our CDC. And there's so many variables on overwhelmingly across the board. It's a high failure rate. 70%-ish failure rate. Now the variables are how long were these embryos frozen? Are they implanted into a healthy woman? Are they implanted to a woman who's had issues of infertility anyway? Are they implanted into a woman that's 40 versus 28 or 30? So there's all those kind of variables. But if you just look at just the raw data, it's overwhelmingly a high failure rate, and it hasn't changed. I've been looking at these reports for 10, 15 years, and it's still overwhelmingly a high failure rate, which is why we have in the US 1.5 million frozen embryos. We make so many because we know most of them are going to fail. And a lot of them don't survive the thawing process. So if you freeze and bank your eggs or you freeze and bank embryos, a lot of them just will die in the thawing process. Because, it gets back to, biological reality. This is not stuff that's meant to be frozen for years. I mean, there was a little girl that was born recently and she'd been frozen, I think, 24 years. I mean, that's human experimentation. We have no idea if there's going to be something down the road that we're going to go, oops. Oh, note to self, don't freeze people for 24 years. Don't freeze embryos for 24 years. It's like, look at Dolly the sheep, the first, the sheep that we cloned. She got elderly very fast. She got diabetes, she got obesity and had to be euthanized. But at first, she looked like a perfectly cute little furry little sheep.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I was wondering about this too. This is from our conversation earlier, the uterus and implants. But Sanmi had asked, what did they even attach the uterus to? What about all the vasculature? How would it even work in a body that isn't designed to house a uterus? It doesn't seem, I don't understand how that would work either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that house part, because I was thinking, it'd be one thing if it's a woman. Usually a woman, if she's lost her uterus, still has her cervix, so they can attach it to that in the vasculature. Well, I mean, I'm imagining that again, if this is a man that's had a vaginoplasty, they would I mean, I'm just speculating here. I'm spitballing because I can't even imagine what they're going to find when they get in there and attach it to. I mean, obviously, a lot of men haven't had vaginoplasties. They have penises, but they want a uterus. Are they going to deliver the baby through their urethra? I've seen a man howl when he's trying to pass a kidney stone, let alone an 8-pound baby. Yeah, I'm sure all the urologists and the reproductive endocrinology people would have to get together, and the plastic surgeons to sort of fashion a whole, cavity there. I mean, there'd be plenty of vasculature, to support, because we all, male or female, we've got vasculature that supports all of our internal organs. But it's just the anatomical stuff, I think, is more complex. And again, I can't imagine that they could create a man that could actually have a vaginal birth through a vaginoplasty. I think it would have to be a baby that would be born via C-section. The horrors of it. Can you imagine? I mean, as a nurse, I'm like, I would be out of that operating room like muy pronto. Like, I'm sorry, I want nothing to do with this. This is not what I signed up for. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. People even are thinking they want this stuff, and they're saying it out loud.
Well, why? I mean, women have bodies that are built for this, and they're designed to create, and this is how their bodies work. They're designed to take care of these babies and to birth these babies in exactly the perfect.
Well, you and I both know so many. We both know so many detransitioners, and they know they're posing, they're faking, they're acting. I remember one of the detransitioned men in my last film, The Lost Boys. He was, long hair, changed his name, wearing his dresses, painting his nails. And he's like, I would just hang out with a bunch of girls and I just didn't get them. I didn't understand how they thought. I didn't feel like I could fit into the conversation. They're just, we're different. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We're different. And that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's been totally lost, I think. And honestly, I think that we can blame feminism in part for that, because I am so regretful that I grew up and spent so much of my life thinking that men sort of could be more like me, like it was something wrong with them. Like I didn't really understand how different men were from women, which I should have understood because, obviously I'm attracted to and I like men for a reason. I'm not attracted to women, and I'm not interested in those kinds of relationships with women at all. But, then you're in a relationship with a man, and as a feminist, you're like, why can't you be more like this? And you really don't understand each other, and you think it's something wrong with him and he can change, instead of realizing that actually, yeah, men and women are very, very different. We've evolved very differently.
Yeah, yeah. I know. And I think
It's not just physical, of course we're different physically, but that's tied to all sorts of other behaviors and modes of thinking and
yeah,
desires and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I do see signs of hope. I always have to see hopeful signs. We have a lot more interest and awareness about how bad technology is for children. So now schools are saying, no phones, no smartphones during class time. Bring your phone to school, but you have to check it in, and then at the end of the day, you can come get it. Parents are more mindful of what their kids are watching on TV and their involvement in social media. Is it perfect? No. Do we have ways to go to improve? I don't know if it's happening in Mexico or in Canada, but in the US, there seems to be this new fad for homesteading. Making sure that you can grow your own food. You have your chickens, you can get your eggs. You got your generator. So that you're not depending on this, this crazy world that's just, wanting to put us on Mars and wanting robots to do all of the jobs and the work for us. I mean, we'll still always need people. There's just things that, we're still going to need doctors who can do surgery. Now, will they use AI? Yes. Will they use robots? Yes, they already are. But, at the end of the day, you need I want a doctor that says, how are you doing? How are you feeling? I've just told you have this horrible diagnosis. You've got 6 months to live. How are you? What can we do for you? Since we can't save your life, how can we make you comfortable? I don't know that I can see robots having that kind of connection. It's called a human connection for a reason. It's like men can't be women. Robots can't be human.
It makes you wonder if Big Mac is just full of a whole bunch of sociopaths or autistic people or something that don't see the value in human relationships and humanity at all, and that they're the ones who are running the world apparently, which is very disturbing to me.
Yeah, but we just have to keep pushing back. We have to keep saying no, men cannot have babies. No, we shouldn't gestate babies out of brain dead women. No, 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 no. I guess that's kind of wagging your finger. Maybe we need some branding messaging so it's not so no, no, no. Hell no.
Okay, I think we should log off soon. It's been about an hour, but if anybody has any more questions, please speak now or forever hold your peace and use the super chat. But tell us where we can find you and your work.
Yeah, well, I hang out on X mostly at Jennifer Lahl. That's where I am on X. The CBC Network is the website where you can watch our films, read our research, our articles where we're thinking about this kind of stuff all day long. We're situated in the deep space of medical ethics, especially in new technologies and medical technologies. So, follow me there.
Okay. And I've linked, yeah, I'm so sorry, everyone, about the sound issues. I've linked to Jennifer's paper that she co-authored, Fertility Preservation, Is There a Model for Gender-Dysphoric Youth, in the show notes on YouTube. And I've linked to the article that she wrote for Reality's Last Stand. Men can't get pregnant no matter what Yale says.
And if I could just add one more thing, our paper that was published in Frontiers in Endocrinology was actually cited in the new report that the HHS just put out, which was sort of what everybody's calling the US CAS report. So
okay.
It was pretty cool to see it was already cited in, that report. So,
yeah, good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's already been used in one medical malpractice case as expert testimony.
Oh,
which is
great.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully next time you come on, we can figure out video issues without making
my sound tech guy the next
go
time.
through it with us. But yeah, this is
Adios,
super
amigo.
interesting. Okay.
Buenas noches.
Thanks, everybody.